Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I started this podcast to give fathers the tools to understand and connect with their daughters. Dads, you have such an impact on your daughters. I'm here to support you by providing the daughter's perspective and bringing on experts and guests to help you raise happy, healthy, and confident daughters. All right, Girl Dads, let's get into it. Hey, and welcome back to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and today we are doing a deep dive on the hidden cost of inaction. I was actually on a walk today thinking about this theme, just about life in general, not related to the podcast, and how it's interesting that doing nothing is actually a choice and inaction is actually an action. And I think we just talk about inaction like it's a neutral thing where, not doing something means nothing happened. But I really want to talk about this topic today in the context of father-daughter relationships and how dads can fall into traps sometimes of inaction and what that really means from the daughter's perspective and how she can interpret those different kinds of inactions. And really, I would love to just encourage you to think about this topic because I think it's really interesting and I think we can all value from thinking about our decisions and the things that we aren't deciding upon and not doing, and how that really is a choice in itself. So for today's conversation, I want to just kind of define what inaction looks like when it comes to father-daughter relationships. Then we'll go into just a couple of statistics around this kind of theme. And we'll finish with, from the daughter's perspective, how we as girls can interpret some of this inaction, just so that you're aware of how our mind works and the stories that we may be telling ourselves so that you can take action accordingly and just see into our world a little bit better. And before we dive into the episode officially, I do want to let you know that this is not about being a bad dad. So inaction does not equal bad dad. But I really just want to have this conversation to bring awareness as to our perspective as daughters, and also acknowledge that a lot of dads who choose inaction do so for a few reasons. One, they probably did not have a dad who modeled emotional presence, which is very common, especially if you think about the generation prior and just kind of the norms at that time. Number two, maybe they feel awkward or unqualified or afraid to say the wrong thing. So instead, they say nothing or do nothing. And that's a really big one, especially related to some of the kind of taboo conversations that maybe they aren't having. And then number three, they assume mom has it covered. I hear this a lot from the daughter perspective. And it really comes in the way of, oh, I had a good dad overall, but he wasn't really there for me, and my mom kind of handled everything. So a lot of times they just kind of assume mom's got this. But if you're listening to this podcast, I know you have a desire to be involved and not hand everything off to mom. So all good there. But that is one of the reasons. And then number four, they think their daughter will come to them when she's ready. So this is another really common theme when it comes to inaction, and it's one that has great intentions and makes sense. But again, I just wanted to shed some light on why this tends to happen before diving into the episode. So with that, let's begin. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was what inaction actually looks like when it comes to father-daughter relationships. So number one would be not spending one-on-one time with her. The inaction here is the decision to not carve out that special dedicated time with your daughter. And when I'm thinking about the hidden costs of inaction, I like to think about what you're not doing and what is being done instead. So by not carving out that one-on-one time to spend with your daughter, you are probably prioritizing time as a larger group, maybe in a family setting, or time for work or your friends or other obligations. So that's really the flip side of this specific case of inaction. And the costs here would be, these are really, really special, amazing, incredible moments to have with your daughter where really high impact conversations can happen, high impact connections, moments that she will likely remember the most when she's reflecting on her relationship with you and the memories that you've shared together. And it's a really great time to really understand your daughter and make her feel special and loved and seen and all the things that I know you want your daughter to feel. The second example of common inaction for girl dads would be not saying things that they truly mean and truly feel. So things like, I love you, or I'm so proud of you, or you should be so proud of yourself. These words that you feel and you know are true in your heart, if you choose not to speak them, the hidden cost here is she may not feel them and she may actually question herself and guess if those words are true. Young girls are especially extremely literal. So if you speak words to her, she will take those words as the golden words and written in Sharpie, and they are the truth. So the more that you tell her things like, I love you, I'm so proud of you, I will always be there for you, the more that she feels those words to be true. And if you aren't speaking them, but you mean them, then again, you leave her guessing. And when women are left to guessing, sometimes we snowball stories in our head and make them our reality. And we feel those things to be true. So if we don't hear the words, I love you, we may feel that we are not loved. And we may feel that so real that that's our reality when it just takes the words being said. So I'm sure you're saying these words, but I just want to use this as a reminder that it is so important for us to hear these words. The third example of inaction would be not having hard conversations around relationships, boys, self-worth, puberty, or her body. And the action here that you're taking is really to allow external sources to create those conversations for her or have those conversations with her. So, for you to not have these conversations, it doesn't mean that she's not thinking about these things or talking about these things. It means that she's being influenced by sources like social media or her peers or maybe some girls in the locker room that she's listening to their conversation. And so, your inaction doesn't mean that these conversations go away or it doesn't exist, you know? And I know these conversations can be totally awkward, and that is why it's one of the main reasons for inaction for dads. But I really want to call this out because it's so important. And like I said, she's going to have these conversations regardless. So if you want to have an influence and be a part of her world and her understanding of these different things, which I think you are so qualified to do, by the way, then it's really important that you have these conversations and ensure that you are somebody that she can come to for these conversations later. So by you opening up that door, you are letting her know, hey, I'm here for you. We can have hard conversations and I can remain a steady source of calm and reason and support and love. And that means the world to her. So just keep that in mind as your daughter goes through these different phases of life and these subjects become more and more relevant. And the fourth and final example of what inaction can look like is being physically present but emotionally checked out. So that is a choice, choosing to be in the same room as her, but being totally emotionally checked out, where if she talks to you or says, Dad, look at this, you're just not in the same space as her. She feels that big time. So by taking this route of inaction, your action is actually, being okay with her not feeling your presence and recognizing that she is not a priority in that moment. So just be aware of those times when you aren't able to be physically there or emotionally there, because it would actually be better if you weren't physically there. And so if you are responding to an important email, for example, if you can contain that in your office or a space where you're dedicated to work and then come out and be physically and emotionally available and present, that has a far greater positive impact than you being there with her all day, near her, but constantly distracted and not really physically there. So, this is related to the quality over quantity topic. And I can speak to this very well because my dad was busy all the time, worked a lot. But when he was there, he was there. And we felt it and we knew it. And him being gone a lot did not affect our relationship. And the same goes with him and my little sisters. He was there when he was there, and that's what mattered. So, just a reminder to take action to be physically and emotionally present when you are spending time with your daughter. Okay, now I wanted to give you a couple of facts around the research on this specific subject of inaction when it comes to father daughter relationships. So, number one, research consistently shows that father absence, which includes emotional absence, by the way, significantly impacts daughters' self esteem, often resulting in reliance on peer relationships for the emotional support that should come from home. So, when you aren't physically and emotionally there, like we were just talking about, she will actually go looking for that affirmation elsewhere. So that usually comes in the form of from her friends, from boys, from number of likes on social media, and none of those sources are equipped to give her what you can give her. And that's true, real love that is everlasting, and father love is the best kind for a daughter in terms of filling her cup and making sure that she feels secure and fulfilled, and she isn't looking for this kind of thing elsewhere. So, this research just kind of backs up what we had been talking about previously. And number two, we are in a mental health crisis with girls. If you've listened to the Anxious Generation 3-part deep dive series, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. But choosing to show up emotionally actually protects your daughter's mental health. And choosing not to show up emotionally or inaction is not neutral. It's actually a risk factor. So, yeah, pretty interesting how important this is and the kind of role it plays in her mental health and self esteem. And the last piece of research related to this conversation is something that we talk a lot about on this podcast, but it's that your relationship with her and the conversations that you have with your daughter about relationships sets the bar for what she looks for in her relationships. So, not talking to her about what she deserves in a relationship is a choice to let her set that standard on her own. And she will set it based on what she observes, as we talk about, but also what her friends are talking about, what the internet is teaching her. And you have a chance and a choice to be part of that conversation and help shape her expectations for what that should look like. So the research tells the story of what in terms of what happens in father-daughter dynamics with inaction. But I want to finish by telling you the how behind how we actually feel as daughters. So number one, we make meaning out of your silence. So when you don't ask about our day, we don't think, dad is tired. We think, I must not be interesting enough to him. And when you avoid hard conversations, she doesn't think, dad doesn't know what to say. She thinks this topic may be shameful, or worse, I might be too much to handle. And I think the thing that I really want to hit home here is that your silence is never empty to us. We fill that with the stories that we feel are the most accurate. And most of the time, they are completely inaccurate. And so I'm calling that out as well. But I want to make you aware of this because, like I've said before, we are fantastic storytellers. And I think it's really important that you know how we tend to loop these stories so that you can speak the truth and let us know exactly how you feel about us and what you're thinking. Even if it's a hard conversation, calling out why it's hard is helpful to us. So, yeah, just want to call that out. Another thing is when your daughter is young, she might tell you everything. But if you're not there for the small things and, show genuine excitement or interest, then she probably will learn to not bring you the big things. And by the time she's navigating boys or mental health issues or peer pressure or identity questions, you may already have lost her in terms of her desire to open up to you. And by the way, you can always fix this. This is very fixable. But your inaction could have told her that you don't want to hear it or you are not available for these kinds of hard conversations. The third effect of this from the daughter's perspective is she might get her education somewhere else. And this is already something we've talked about on this episode, but if you're not talking to her about these different conversations, somebody else is. So it could be TikTok, it could be her friends, it could be Instagram, locker room talk, all of it. It's happening. She's having these conversations, she's having these thoughts. So whose voice is she going to trust and hear first and hear with the most love and support? Well, you have the option to make it your voice. I've talked to a lot of daughters about their relationships with their fathers, and I can tell you that the ones who are closest with their dads, it's not really because of these like big grand gestures. And I've mentioned that before. It's really the little things, but it's also the way that dads make them feel by showing up. And so asking the right questions, trying your best. You can feel that as a daughter. Saying I love you, saying the words, spending time together one on one, and really being present when you're physically in the same space as her. These are all things that really, really contribute to the way a daughter feels in the relationship and the way that she feels your love and your support and your closeness. And so that's really the theme of this conversation is all of these inactions are actions, and they're typically versions that take you away from having the best relationship that you can. So I would just encourage you today to reflect on the ways that you can make sure you're taking action that supports your relationship and sets you up for success, because all of these moments that you choose presence over distraction are ripple effects of the relationship. And they are beautiful ripples that impact the future of your relationship. And yeah, I just think this is a really important theme here. And it's great to even apply it to the rest of your life. Like I said, I was thinking about this theme when I was on my walk, and it had nothing to do with father daughter relationships. But then I was thinking about what I should talk about today. And I was like, wait, this is a great conversation and so applicable to this dynamic and also to life in general. So I think everyone should be asking themselves about the hidden costs of their inaction and what that really means for them, because it's so easy to get stuck in, I'll just do nothing, or, oh, I'll wait for that thing. And doing nothing is doing something. So I will leave you with that today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode felt relevant to you, please share it with another girl dad who you think would enjoy it. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you next week.